Well, let's talk now to Sean Bell, former Air Vice-Marshal and military analyst. Sean, welcome. I know you're being bounced into this somewhat, but that's the story of this conflict. We do know that President Zelenskyy has spoken now, saying he's ready to come to the negotiating table to sign a minerals deal and a security agreement, which may restart US military aid, which was paused. We don't know whether this is the beginning of the end of this conflict. How do you read it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a simple question, but a very complex answer, isn't it? I think the dramatic effects in the White House on that Friday, the fateful news conference, I think, was very difficult to watch and was very damaging for President Zelenskyy. But he did appear to be ambushed somewhat, both in his style of clothing being criticized, but also it did appear that the US side was trying to put a lot of pressure on him, which wasn't his first language at all. And I think that was very difficult. I think this latest move by the US, the immediate impact on the battlefield will be fairly profound. There's been almost a stalemate reached at the moment in parts of the Donbass. But of course, as soon as Russia knows that the Ukrainian supply of weapons is reducing, it will inevitably put more pressure on it. If you remember back in, I think it was summer of 23, when Congress paused the supply of American weapons, didn't restart it for another 9 months. You know, Ukraine lost Avdiivka, a major city, and a lot of Ukrainian lives were lost. And so it seems very likely, with the Russians pushing hard against Pokrovsk, that might fall. And you also know, of course, there was that enclave of military that the Ukrainians have in Kursk, actually inside Russian territory. I suspect that will look very, very difficult to sustain if the supply of weapons don't continue to flow into Ukraine.
Mr. Trump has made it very clear that he wants European countries to step up and fund more of their defence. Ursula von der Leyen announcing the Rearm Europe plan, this €800 billion defence spending initiative. How significant is that, and is it transformative for European security?
Well, I think there's two questions in there, one of which is it sounds a huge amount of money, hundreds of billions of dollars. The hard reality is, though, that the European defence industry, even if you have that money today, there isn't the industrial capacity to turn that money into weapons. And that is something that will take some years, not only to build the factories, train the people, get the raw materials together. So it'll take several years for that injection of money to actually be converted. But I'll go back to your earlier point there. You know, we thought that the Trump agenda here was to put pressure on Europeans to step up, not only to meet their 2%, maybe further obligation for NATO, but also to provide the security guarantees for the Ukraine conflict. And on Sunday, British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer hosted a summit in London trying to do exactly that. However, what was interesting on Monday, President Trump then criticised that initiative. And it's pretty evident now what President Trump sees is that continuing aid to Ukraine is simply perpetuating the war, not bringing it to a head. And I think one of the reasons that he's cut off this aid so dramatically, knowing full well that Europeans can't plug that gap in the near term, is to put huge pressure on President Zelenskyy to try to bring the war to an end, potentially even punish him for not being appeased by President Trump.
Sean, good to see you. Thanks for coming on the programme again. Sean Bell, the Air Vice-Marshal and military analyst.